This is the first book I ever read as an adult. It's pretty good. I don't think you can get it with this cover anymore. I don't think you can. Ariel knelt before the altar of the emperor, the flickering light from the hundreds of candles that filled the chapel reflecting 100-fold on its smooth finished surface. A fog of heavily scented smoke filled the upper reaches of the chapel from the many burners that lined the nave, smelling of knallwood and sandarach. Chanting priests, clutching prayer beads, and burning tapers paced the length of the chapel, muttering and raving silently to themselves, while albino skinned cherubs with flickering golden wings and cobalt blue hair bobbled in the air above them. Long lengths of prayer paper trailing from dispensers in their bellies. Uriel ignored them. Holding the wire-wound hilt of his power sword in a two-handed grip, while resting his hands on the gold quillions. The sword was unsheathed, point down to the floor, and Uriel rested his forehead on the carven skull of its pommel as he prayed. The sword was the last gift from Captain Idaeus, his former mentor, and though it had been broken on Pavanis a lifetime ago, it seemed now, Uriel forged a new blade of his own before departing on the crusade to Tarsus Ultra and his eventual disgrace. He wondered what Idaeus would have made of his current situation, and gave thanks that he was not here to see what had become of his protege. Pausanias knelt beside him, eyes shut and lips moving in a silent benediction. Uriel found it hard to countenance the dark, brooding figure Pausanias had become since leaving the fortress of Hera. True, they had been cast from the chapter, their homeworld, and their battle brothers, but they had a duty to perform, an oath to fulfill, and a space marine never turned his back on such obligations, especially not an ultramarine. Uriel knew that Pausanias was a warrior of courage and honor, and just hoped that he had the strength of character to lift himself from this disposition. Remembering, sitting in a chapel not dissimilar to this in one of the Medicaid buildings in Tarsus Ultra. He finished his prayers, standing kissing the blade of his sword, before sheathing it in one economical motion. He bowed to the statue of the emperor and made the sign of the Aquila across his chest, glancing down at Pausanias as he continued to pray. He frowned as he noticed some odd marks protruding from the gorget of Pausanias' armor. Standing above him, Uriel could see that the marks had begun at the nape of Pausanias' neck, before disappearing out of sight beneath his armor. The crusting of scar tissue told Uriel that they were wounds, recent wounds, instantly clotted by Lauerman cells within their bloodstream. But how had he come by such marks? Before Uriel could ask, he felt a presence behind him, and turned to see one of the priests, a youngish man with haunting eyes, staring at him in rapt fascination. "Preacher," Uriel said respectfully. "No, not yet," yelped the priest, twisting his prayer beads round and around his wrists in ever tighter loops. "No preacher am I, a poor Cenobite only, my angel of death." Uriel could see the man's palms were slick with blood, and wondered what manner of order he belonged to. There were thousands of recognized sects within the Imperium, and this man could belong to any one of them. He scanned the man's robes for some clue, but his deep blue chasuble and scapular were unadorned save for their silver fastenings. Can I help you with something? Pressed Uriel as Pausanias rose to his feet and stood by his side. The man shook his head. No. He cracked with a lopsided grin. Already dead, I am. The omphalos, demonium comes. I feel it pushing from the inside of my skull. He will take me, and everyone else, for his infernal engine. Dead morsels for his furnace, flesh for his table, and blood for his chalice. Uriel shared a sidelong glance at Pausanias and rolled his eyes, realizing that the Cenobite was utterly insane. A common complaint amongst the more zealous of the emperor's followers. Such unfortunates were deemed to exist on a level closer to the divine emperor and allowed to roam free, that their ravings might grant some clue to their will of the immortal master of mankind. I thank you for your words, preacher, said Uriel, but we have completed our devotions and must take our leave. No, said the Cenobite emphatically. No. What are you talking about? Asked Uriel, beginning to lose patience with the lunatic priest. Like most of the Adeptus Astartes, the Ultramarines had a strained relationship with the priests of the Ministerium. The Space Marines believed that the Emperor was the mightiest mortal to bestride the galaxy, but a mortal nonetheless, diametrically opposed to the teachings of the Ecclesiarchs. I don't hear anything, said Uriel, stepping around the Cenobite and marching towards the chapel's iron door. You will, promised the man. Uriel churned as a monotonous servitor's voice crackled from the lactum-plated Vox units mounted on the shadows of the arc ceiling, announcing, all hands, prepare for warp translation. Warp translation in 30 seconds. The Cenobite laughed, spittle frothing at the corners of his mouth as he raised the torn forearms above his head. Blood ran from his open wrists and splattered his face before rolling his cheeks like ruby tears. He dropped to his knees and whispered, too late, the Lord of Skulls comes. A spasm of sickness sheared along Uriel's spine as the last words left the Cenobite's mouth, and he stepped towards the man, ready to chastise him for uttering such blasphemies in this sanctified place. The lights in the chapel dimmed as the ship prepared for warp translation. Uriel dragged the young preacher to his feet, and the Cenobite's head exploded. Blood geysered in slow motion from the ragged stump of the Cenobite's neck. Uriel pushed his spasming corpse away in disgust, backing away and wiping the sticky fluid from his face. Can you hear me? The body remained upright, jerking and thrashing, as though in the grip of a violent seizure. The Cenobite's arms flailed wildly, yet more blood flickering from his open wrists and splattering the statuary and the altar. Even as he stared in fast horror